I'll say it again. Learn some mic skills. All right, tell me when you're ready.
That's good enough.
No, it's not. Welcome in again to another edition of WVSports.com. This video podcast, Musings from the Mountains. Hello again, friends. It's your senior writer / managing editor extraordinaire, Keenan Cummings from the site.
And it's your staff writer, Patrick Kotnik for the site.
Yeah. We got a lot to talk about. West Virginia went on the road to Baylor. They lost the game, which I don't think would surprise a lot of people, given the spread was 19 points. The way they played probably did surprise some people. West Virginia came out of the bye, inspired effort, especially on the defensive side. Lost the game 17-14. We'll get into timeouts and delay of games and some of those issues later. But for now, let's focus on the fact that this was a young West Virginia team, went on the road and played really well, at least in one phase, maybe two phases, and had a chance to win, Pat.
I mean, it was just a bizarre game from start to finish. You had a bunch of punts to start off, then you had some critical mistakes by West Virginia, which we'll get into more detail here soon, but just a bizarre game from start to finish. Now, West Virginia, despite the struggles on offense that they had, they still defense, special teams still put the team in a position to win the game, but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it was just it really summed up the struggles that West Virginia's offense has had all season. They haven't been able to really generate big plays down the field. Now, I know they had that 83-yard touchdown, but you take that away, not a great performance from West Virginia's offense. But they had chances, just couldn't capitalize.
If you told me that West Virginia would have 219 yards of offense, go 3 for 17 on third down, and lose 48 yards on errant snaps, I'd tell you it'd probably be a blowout. Maybe Baylor 2013. No, it wasn't.
It was hard to believe because it really felt like, even with Baylor up, 7-0 at halftime, it really felt like West Virginia was down 21-0 or even more. Yeah,
I thought one of the critical plays of the game for West Virginia, at least to stay in it, was that goal line stand. Baylor had 3 cracks inside the one. This is a team that averaged over 7 yards per play, almost 8 yards per play, and couldn't get an inch on 2 plays. I think that was telling of the defense. It's a unit that didn't quit. Had 8 sacks. 8 sacks. That was multiple games last year. That's the most since West Virginia reeled off 8 against UConn in 2011. That's a long time ago, and really the defense got after it. 12 tackles for loss, some big plays, forced some turnovers. It was inspired effort, and you hate to see that almost go to waste. I don't want to do the offense versus defense deal. I don't think that's ever fair because a football team's a team. Some games the offense is going to perform, some games the defense is going to perform. But it has to be mentioned how well that group played. A piecemeal group, a lot of guys hurt, a lot of freshmen, a lot of walk-ons in there, a lot of just players that were playing out of position, and they really shut this Baylor offense down. They had a couple miscommunications after Josh Norwood got ejected, which ended up leading to a Baylor touchdown. They missed a sack on another drive that would have ended it and extended things and allowed Baylor to get that eventual game-winning field goal. But outside of that, you have no complaints about what you saw out of that group.
Yeah, you mentioned it, Keenan. I mean, overall, an inspired effort by West Virginia's defense and special teams. And now I know defense sometimes has had their ups and downs, whether it's sometimes against the run, special teams. We saw against Oklahoma, allowed Oklahoma to get a punt to block the punt and get a touchdown. But just an inspired effort all around. Just with this team, we've talked about the departures they've had in this, during this season, the injuries, all of these young and inexperienced players having to step up and be able to, contribute right away. Some of them before they're physically, mature. Yeah, I mean, a lot of them before they're really even ready. But just a great effort all around by West Virginia. But to me, at the end of the day, yeah, you came close to beating the 12th ranked team in the nation. But at this point, I mean, you still can't really have any moral victories. At the end of the day, it goes down, as a loss, and the team's 4 straight.
Yeah, I think there's 2 ways this can go. West Virginia can learn from this and really use this to kind of propel them moving forward. Or was this an aberration? Was this the NC State game on offense? Everybody thought that was a get-right game for West Virginia offensively. Mm-hmm. I know, as we've mentioned before, and now as Neil mentioned, freshmen and injuries have contributed to this, but the offense hasn't gotten any better. In fact, I'd argue it's gotten worse. Some of that has to do with competition, but that's the nature of football. Where does this fit in now? Is this group going to be able to continue to play winning football? Because it has, for the most part. They've been put into some difficult situations with an offense that cannot run the football. Only ran for 14 yards last night. That's the lowest total West Virginia's had since they fell backwards for 10 yards against Syracuse in 1996. I mean, it's amazing that this was a 3-point game when you look at things statistically. But that is where this team finds itself. They've got to find a way to build off this. I've heard a lot of comparisons to that Appalachian State game in Neil's first year at Troy. They lost by 3 points in triple overtime to an Appalachian State team that would go on to win 11 games. Maybe this is that. Another 3-point loss in a game they maybe should have won. We'd be remiss, obviously, if we didn't talk about the late game situation. The first real major snafu, I guess, fair to say, of Neil Brown's coaching career here at West Virginia. Drilled a 43-yard kick to tie the game.
Casey Legg, too, replacing Evan Staley.
Casey Legg comes through, drills the kick, but it doesn't count. Delay of game there, and that's just inexcusable. Neil took the blame. I think you like to see that out of the head coach. It's his fault, ultimately. They have guys assigned to do that, but they didn't do it. And in retrospect, you move 5 yards back, you kick it again. Baylor, who's blocked probably more kicks than anyone outside of Virginia Tech, gets their hands on it and ends the game effectively. West Virginia had another chance, but there's nothing Keith Washington could have done on that 43-yard completion. That's as good of a throw and good of a catch as you'll see in college football. He was in perfect coverage, but they did have a chance to get the ball back. They didn't. Obviously lost the game. Now West Virginia's going to turn a little bit to what's next. And this team has 4 games left. They're 3-5. Still have no identity offensively. You have seen some sparks defensively. What can this team do down the stretch, Pat?
Well, one other thing I wanted to mention, too, about that from the Baylor game on Thursday night was just, Baylor had 3 turnovers, but, as I mentioned before, West Virginia's offense just not able to capitalize. By my calculations, they gained 24 yards at 22 plays after those, for the offense after those drives with the turnovers. One drive ended with a punt, and that was also the first bad snap that center Bryson Mays had. Then there's a turnover on the second after the second turnover from Baylor, and that too was the snap by Bryson Mays. And then you had that missed field goal attempt there at the end. Still, like we mentioned, chances for West Virginia, but they just couldn't capitalize. Now moving forward, Keenan, as you mentioned, they could continue to build off what they did defensively and on special teams. But what I'm very curious to see, there's only 4 games left. Redshirt rule. You can freshmen, anybody can play up to 4 games and still get a redshirt. With 4 games left, I'm really curious to see who plays, who of the players that the staff intends to redshirt. Who plays? I know there's been talk
Dare I mention Daggy?
Just don't say that. Just don't say the F word with some of these freshmen, like I've been saying. But Brandon Yates, Parker Moore, offensive lineman, Tony Mathis, running back, Jarrett Daggy, who you mentioned. I feel like there's some questions there. I'm really curious to see just how much some of these guys play and if they even play at all.
Yeah, and it's one of those games where you're proud, in a sense, that this team went on the road and played as well as it did, given the circumstances. But you can't help but think how disappointed it is that an opportunity got away. And I think that's the hovering cloud today in Morgantown is, yes, this young team showed a lot of heart. And Neil said that. He was proud of them. It's not okay to lose. He was proud of them, though, with how they've bought in, how they battled. But you can't sit here and not think maybe if that timeout's called, we're talking about maybe that's Neil Brown's signature win at West Virginia. So,
well, similar vibes to the Texas game. We saw how close West Virginia, the opportunities they had in that game, but 4 costly turnovers cost them in that game.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens next. West Virginia has Texas Tech at home, a winnable game. This is a team that just lost to Kansas. So I think West Virginia has a chance to maybe get a win, get some momentum. We'll see how they bounce back and how they play. Going to take your questions, though, as we tend to do on this show. Patrick has the list. Without further ado, let's roll it.
You just made the list.
I did.
Sorry, I had to take advantage of that opportunity. But first question here: do some of the redshirts get to play, or is Coach just going to wait until the last 4 to avoid any confusion on game count?
Well, I think it's going to be a mix and match. Jared Bartlett saw his first game action last night against Baylor. Played pretty well, honestly, for a freshman. I think you could tell there's a difference.
Snaps,
there's a difference in him when he's on the field. Athletic pass rushing linebacker is only going to get better. Now, with 4 games left, potentially 5 if you do make a bowl, now is the time you're going to start seeing these guys. Maybe it's this week. Maybe it's the week after. But once you get to the final back 3 games, you can almost guarantee you're going to see these guys. This one will be a little iffy, just if West Virginia is holding out for a bowl game, which they obviously should be with 3 wins. But you're going to start seeing some guys you haven't seen before.
Next question, too, in the world of recruiting, the ever so entertaining world of recruiting. Reading the tea leaves on Lamy Consett, it seems West Virginia has sent out a flurry of running back offers, both in this class and future ones, leading those who are far removed from Motown to think that Consett is looking for a better O-line or run behind. Is this now the case?
No, I haven't heard anything to make me think different. From what I have heard, he's going to be taking an official visit in December. Really, I would not. It's not fair to say it hasn't been a little bit of a weird recruitment. You know, he's been close to committing several times. He's publicly said that, and then he hasn't. He's been to Morgantown, hasn't visited anywhere else. Right now, we're kind of waiting. You know, is he going to end up taking an official? He said he tweeted the other day, "It's time." Could have not have been recruiting. Could have been maybe it was time to get his Eggo waffles out of the oven. But who knows? But it's recruiting. I have continued to hear positive things, though, and I think that they are optimistic if they're able to get him on campus that they can get him in the fold.
Now they recently did offer JUCO running back, right?
Yeah.
A couple of them.
I think that's a telling sign. Maybe one of the guys isn't coming back, or maybe they think that they need another running back. Maybe they need 2 running backs, because that was the original plan in this class. Might have changed when Martell Pettaway decided to redshirt, but maybe Pettaway isn't back next year. Maybe Sinkfield. I'm not saying they aren't. I'm just speculating. But I think that's what that shows you.
Now, next question here, and I really appreciate whoever sent this question in, putting it hours before the game even kicked off. What went wrong in the Baylor game?
Lack of explosive plays, not using a timeout. Penalties, way too many penalties. That was one of the dirtiest games of the season.
Well, 11 penalties for West Virginia, 89 yards.
Yeah, that was a dirty game, and continues to be an inability to run the football. West Virginia lost yards running the ball on 4 straight second downs. That makes third down very hard. You know how you go 3 for 17 on third down? You're looking at 3rd and 9s. That's not that's not ideal.
And we're at the point, we've been at the point in the season now where, you're not just going to be able to plug in other guys and plug in, make personnel changes and expect things to change overnight. At this point in the season, they have what they have. Can it get better? Yes. Is it going to dramatically improve? I don't see any way at all. But next question here: how many WVU players enter the portal this year?
Good luck answering that. That whole thing.
You never know.
Yeah, that whole thing has become its own world. Guys that you never would expect to enter the portal. Look at Giovanni Stewart. The guy was started all 4 games, and he's in the portal. There's guys across college football, recruits that never even play a snap, sign with a school and never even play a snap. Not because they aren't talented, because they just decide they're going to leave before the season even starts. So it's the Wild West now with that thing. And taking a guess is anybody's guess, but I guarantee you that we will have information when players go in it.
Yeah, probably by the end of the regular season?
Yeah.
At least, yeah.
You'll start to see guys. It's going to be a yearly thing now. You saw this past offseason, there were guys going in it even in late May, June. So I think it's just a year-round thing now.
Yeah. Never know. Ever so entertaining world of college football.
I do think they'll have to look at the hard cap eventually, though, with all the transfers.
Now, next question here. West Virginia lost a lot on offense from a year ago, but you had to have expected more than 119 in total offense from Coach Neil Brown in year 1, right?
That's tough to answer. On the surface, yes, but anybody that would listen to me talk knows how concerned I've been with the offensive line. I never saw what I wanted to see last year, and they were better last year than they are this year. And I think a lot of that, some of that's due to injuries, some of that's due to inconsistency. But they've got to get guys stronger. They've got to get better there. And really, they've got to get better quarterback play. Austin Kendall was miserable in the first half against Baylor, played better in the second half. But you got to find more consistency there as well, because if you can't run the football and you can't stretch the field, it leads to really bad things.
He finished with 205 passing yards against Baylor, but you take away that 83-yard touchdown pass from Kendall to George Campbell, he would have had, I believe it was 122 passing yards.
Math, not my strong suit.
I'm trying to do mental math here, but I mean, not too good at it. But like I said, they got it. You mentioned it, Keenan. They need more consistent play at quarterback as well as up front. I just mentioned that they're not going to be able just to plug in different offensive linemen and expect things just to get better. Now, one area offensive line has been good at is pass protection. That's been the one area they've been solid at for the past 3 or 4 games. But they're going to have to get stronger, and they're going to have to continue to physically mature to be top contributors, especially in a conference like the Big 12. Next question here. Will West Virginia face double-digit point spreads the rest of the season?
No.
No.
I'm not going to expound further. Just no.
Just no?
No.
I'll agree with you. No. Does Neil Brown have a chip on his shoulder when heading into the 2021 class? Also, do you believe he will be a better closer than Daniel Holgerson?
Well, I think he's already proven that. He's already closed on a few high-profile guys that had major offers in this class, and that's without the benefit of really having a chance to establish relationships. He closed on a guy that Data couldn't close on in Tavion Mayo in the last class. So the answer to that, to me, would be yes. I think that's one of the strengths of Neil Brown when it comes to recruiting is his ability to connect with people. As for 2021, yes, I've said it till I'm blue in the face. Circle that class. I think that's going to be a very special class for West Virginia, especially if they close with some momentum here this year and then exceed expectations next year. That's the recipe for success. You got to show growth every year. You've seen it at Baylor with what Matt Rule did. That is what Neil's trying to do right now. It's not as bad as Baylor was, so trust the climb.
We've seen there are it's going to be a talented class within in-state for 2020 when you got Zakai Lawton, Wyatt Millam. Did I say his last name right? A lot of talented recruits in state for West Virginia in that 2021 class. I'm really interested to see just how that class. I know we're still far away from that class. Got to focus on the 2020 class first, but really interested to see how that class pans out. And we mentioned it too, Keenan, just with the relationships with that Neil Brown's been able to build with some of these recruits. That's the one thing that sticks out when we started talking to him after he took over, was that they're really focused on building the relationship, and just a lot of the conversations have surrounded just not even football, just life after football, talking about their family, talking about what they want to do in life after football. So a lot of positive things there for Neil Brown and company. Next question here. Does Austin Kendall not have the arm strength to complete anything more than 10 yards downfield? The one interception should have been a touchdown if James didn't have to camp out and wait for it.
I think it's really funny that this battle going back and forth between people. Some people are all in on blaming Austin Kendall. Some people are all in on blaming the young wide receivers for not competing for footballs. I think it's a mix of both. Kendall's throwing some very catchable balls that have been dropped down the field. It has not helped his numbers.
A lot of them yesterday that would have extended drives too.
Yeah, he's also thrown some ducks that have cost his team. The one you're talking about, right there with it. That was one that was just underthrown. It's a mix of both. I think West Virginia has to get better in that department. It's something I asked Neil Brown about, 3 games into the season, Pat, because they're just lacking an explosive element to this offense.
He said, well, you got to complete them.
Yeah, and when you can't complete passes down the field and you can't run the football, it leads to really bad offenses.
And we've said before, if you can't generate any big plays, you can't throw the ball down the field effectively, then what are opposing defenses going to do? They're going to load up the box and stop the run, and that's exactly what opposing defenses have been able to do. Second and last question here. Why did West Virginia go for the field goal on 4th and 2 in the first place? What did you see from the offense that made you think even if West Virginia tied the game, your offense would be able to score again? Why not go for it?
I think the inability to run the football again is a big issue here, but I thought it was the smart play. Your defense is playing well. Your defense has played well the entire game. Why not try to ride them? Maybe you force a turnover.
We had a lot of confidence in Casey Legg, too. Said.
Legg drilled it. He had the leg. Legg had the leg from 43. He drilled it. Just 48, Baylor was able to get their hands up. Who knows? That kick might have went in, too. but we'll never know because the kick was blocked. So I don't have a problem with going for it or kicking the ball there on 4th down. I think usually, had it been closer, had you been maybe 15-yard line or something, go for it. Why not? You have a chance to win. But who says West Virginia can even string together enough plays to score a touchdown? Because they didn't do it in the whole game other than one chunk play.
Mm-hmm.
So
and the other touchdown came on special teams.
So I think it's one of those things where hindsight's always 20/20, and in the heat of the moment, if I was coaching the football team, I would have done the same thing. But
well, you said it, Keenan. Like it's so easy to go back in hindsight, look at maybe they should have done this, they should have done that. But yeah, if I was coaching heat of the moment, obviously it's a tough position for anyone to be in. He had the confidence in Casey Legg, and he said he drilled it from 43 yards out. But you can't have costly mistakes like that, like delay a game. Last question here: if West Virginia had schemed several Wildcat looks, why did West Virginia just run one?
Well, it doesn't help that the guy that was supposed to do it got hurt. Kennedy McCoy was that guy. Neil said after the game that they had quite a few looks for him out of that package, but he got hurt and he had to leave the game, so they didn't use it. Also, probably didn't help things that one of the errant snaps that cost West Virginia a scoring chance was in that Wildcat package. So that's what happens. It's football. Sometimes bad things happen, but I do think they're trying. They're looking. They're trying to search for ways to move the football. They realize they're not going to win one-on-one up front, so they're trying to get different things, different angles. But it comes back to running the football. They got to find a way to do it. At some point, it's really hard to win in football games if you cannot establish the line of scrimmage on either side of the ball. That was what kept West Virginia in this game. They controlled the line of scrimmage on the opposite side.
Yeah, Keenan, I completely agree with you. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just this offense. I would say it's been the mantra. It's the definition of trust to climb. So many struggles here, but you do have some young options. If you looked at I've got 5 on it that published today. A lot of freshmen, a lot of newcomers been able to make impacts, and yeah, it's not ideal. You never want to have to rely on true freshmen, redshirt freshmen.
Saying the F word again.
Newcomers, you don't have to rely on a lot of newcomers. But Winston Wright, first collegiate touchdown yesterday with that kickoff return. You had Noah Guzman. Did I say his last name right? Guzman. Sorry, Guzman. He led the team in tackles. Kerry Martin, was third on the team in tackles. Tyke Smith. You're seeing a lot of promise. That's what I'm trying to get at here. It's not ideal, but there's still a lot of promise. But still, at the end of the day, I mean, these losses aren't ideal. But
they mount up.
Yeah, but there's a brighter future ahead, it looks like.
Thank you once again for tuning in. This has been a fun edition. We'll be back on our normal schedule next week. We promise we won't have the audio crackling effect we had last week. Short week affected all of our schedules. So we're back in the studio, hopefully for good. And we'll be back with you next week. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit subscribe. We do these videos regularly. Hope to bring you all the information you can handle on your West Virginia Mountaineers. Thanks for tuning in again to another edition of Musings from the Mountains.